All right, so you guys come here for the truth without the hype, and that's exactly what you're going to get today in regards to the generational opportunity that I'm seeing pop up everywhere. I'm getting it sent to me in my group. I'm just hearing it everywhere, and I have to say that I actually agree, but not in the way that it's being presented all over the place. And so let's have that discussion today so that way you avoid complete disaster, because everything that I've seen presented so far has basically set you up for that. Just make sure you like the video if you like getting the truth without the hype. Now, I apologize. There's no fancy edits today or anything else like that. My editor's on vacation. Of course, I got to take vacation, and this is going to be a long video here. And of course, I don't have an editor here. So bear with me. I did the best that I could. I'm flying solo here, trying to get this all done for you guys and get it out here in a timely fashion. And this is a beast. I mean, a complete beast of the video. So stick with me until the end. There's so much value in this one, guys. If you don't want to watch another one of my videos, bookmark this one. This one right here is going to be the one to where I give away a lot of the secret sauce on how to build generational wealth. So basically, the crux of them all was a generational wealth opportunity is here today. And I have to say, yes, I agree with that completely. It is absolutely here today. But I do not agree with how they said it was going to go down. I completely disagreed with that. So I will tell you exactly why I disagree with those videos specifically. And then we'll get to what I believe is the actual generational wealth building opportunity that is here today. I will give you that too. Now, every video I was sent discussed Tesla as being that opportunity. And I guess maybe if you bought Tesla at IPO, that right there would be the opportunity, but I'm not even sure that right there would necessarily be the generational wealth building opportunity that was there. Now, follow me through until the end. If you want to go down and blast me after you watch the whole video, go for it. Please do. So I promise it's all going to make sense in the end here, guys. You just got to stick with me here. So the first reason is it needs to return thousands of percent to provide generational wealth. Now, my buys on Apple are up 54,000%. That is a generational wealth building stock right there, in my opinion. And I do not feel Tesla is that opportunity at its current price. I mean, if Tesla goes to $2,000 per share in the future, whenever that future is, that right there seems like an incredible gain from where we're at right here. But that is actually just a 1,000% return. I'm not saying it's not great or incredible or anything else like that, but we're not talking about a great return. We're talking about a generational wealth return. And I'm sorry, 54,000 destroys a 1,000% gain on a stock. And remember, we're talking about Tesla being at 2,000 at some point in time in the future. Now, what if you bought Tesla at IPO? I know that's just a what if because we're way past IPO now. How much is Tesla up since that time? Well, I'm glad you asked. It's up 13,000%. And just for a little more context here in regards to a generational type stock and generational type wealth, 13,000% is a ridiculous gain. Don't get me wrong. That's a great stock, great time. But NVIDIA, for example, since it IPO'd, is up over 100,000% from that time frame there. So when you kind of start looking at various stocks and generational returns and some things of that nature, you kind of see, hey, Tesla, although it may be able to get there one day, it is a long and a far cry from those type returns, and it's going to be very, very hard to do. And no matter what reasonable projection I can put on Tesla, I don't see from today moving forward that type of a generational opportunity. I don't see a 50,000% return or 100,000% return or anything else like that. That to me is what you need in order to actually have a generational wealth building type stock. Number two, you need to have a nice chunk of money in the stock before it runs. Now, despite the fact I have a 54,000% return on the Apple stocks that I bought back then, the problem is those shares are only worth right around $1 million or so, a little bit over that today, because I didn't buy that much. All I had back then was around $3,000 to throw into the stock. Actually, I had 6, but then I ended up cutting my position in half because I took profits like a moron. Nonetheless, the point being, that little amount right there still did not provide me with generational wealth. Sure, it provided me with great wealth, provided me with an incredible return, but you have to have a big chunk of money in there for you really to have generational wealth happen to your stocks. Now, if I happen to have had $20,000 into the stock there, okay, that right there may be the bottom end of the scale for generational wealth, but I didn't. I only had $3,000 in there. So even at a $20,000 position in Apple way back then, which you can go back and adjust for inflation, all that sort of stuff, figure out what that number was, it still put me kind of on the bottom of the scale of a generational wealth type building opportunity in a stock despite that. So not only do you need crazy returns like that in order to have a generational wealth building stock, you also need to have a pretty good chunk of change in there in order for it to turn into that over time. Oh, and by the way, don't take profits during any of that time. Apple's been dead probably, I don't know, 6 or 8 times in that time frame that I've held it. So you have to be able to ride those ups and downs, not trade out of it, and have a large enough position to where when it goes down 40%, which will happen on that journey, you don't sell, you actually add more. So you've got to have that sort of discipline all the way through. Number three, it takes decades for this to play out. Look, this is just a simple fact with any investment. You're not just going to invest in it and then immediately be, a 100 millionaire in, 5 years. It's just not going to happen. That is not how wealth building works. Everybody wants the quick, fast return. I agree there completely. Of course, I do too. But generational wealth type stocks take decades to build up to that point of continued great, earnings after earnings after earnings after earnings for years and decades on end in order for you to see those types of returns. So it doesn't happen fast. It happens over the course of decades, which of course, everybody seems to conveniently forget when we're talking about these generational wealth type stocks. And number four, nobody knows the generational changing company until after it happens. Sure, there were plenty of Apple and Nvidia bulls out there, but over the course of those 2 decades, nobody could have seen what was coming for those companies. Nobody knew that Apple was going to release this thing called the iPhone, and it was going to completely change the way, tech and just the way our world works all the way around for the rest of our lives. There's no way to predict something like that. Just like Nvidia somehow coming up with the AI chip that the biggest of the big dogs, all of them with the best companies in the world, all of them are just buying as many of them as they can gobble up. As many as Nvidia can make, they're gobbling up at ridiculously high prices. That is impossible to predict over the long run. So anybody making any sort of projections with a Tesla or any of those stock like that, in order for it to be a generational stock, something's going to happen that we don't know about, that we're never going to see happening. We don't know that it's coming, and we don't know that it's actually life-changing in terms of that. There's been a lot of things around Tesla that supposedly are going to provide trillions upon trillions upon trillions of dollars at Tesla's bottom line, and not a single one of them has come through yet. I'm not saying that all the great things out there with Tesla are not going to provide huge money to the bottom line, but we are all purely speculating, purely guessing. And the reality was, I thought Apple was a great company. No idea it had this sort of runway. And typically, whenever I hear folks talking about the next generational wealth building stock or whatever the case is, most of the time they're wrong because the stock comes out of nowhere. The idea, the game-changing whatever comes out of nowhere. It's not known. If it was known, everybody would have already piled in. It would already be up, and then it wouldn't be a generational wealth building stock because it would have already had its run. So when this happens, nobody knows it's happening with the company. Nobody's going to know that it's happening with the company there. So for me, when you get into trying to guess which company is going to do it, it's a useless exercise, because what is going to create that thousands upon thousands of percent return in the future is not known today. Nobody has a clue, so it is useless to try to get into that debate or try to figure that out. So let's put some quick math to all this just to kind of numerically show how hard it is to be a generational wealth type building company right there. Now, who remembers that Tesla was the generational wealth building company back in 2021, right? When it was at $400 per share. That was all over YouTube right here. That was everywhere. Now, of course, this is all adjusted for the split and everything else. But think about this for just a second. And this is the reason why I didn't buy that narrative, why I was just completely against it. One, I was using valuation. Valuation told me valuation was ridiculous at that stage. But even if valuation wasn't completely ridiculous, it was a hard road to hoe, because in order for you just to have a 1,000% return, not a 10,000%, not a 54,000%, just a 1,000% return, you need Tesla in today's prices to be at $4,400 per share. Now think about that for just a second, guys. That's what you need Tesla to go to have 1,000% return. And if you want to just be a millionaire, not generational wealth, just a millionaire in Tesla at $4,400 per share when you were buying at $400, you needed to buy $100,000 per share to get to that million. And contrast that with my Apple buy, that was $3,000 to turn into that $1 million. So if I had $100,000 into Apple at that stage, then it would push me to $33 million today, which I would agree. That would be generational wealth at that stage. But I needed to have $100,000 into Apple back then. And that's where these dangers, some of these narratives come in, because if you had $100,000 in Tesla back then, one, you're more than cut in half, right? Now your position size is down to 45,000 or whatever the case is. I didn't do the math. I'm sorry. I know it's less than half. And more importantly, even if you get a 10x from here or 10x from there at that $400 level, you end up with $1 million, which again, that's a great return overall, but that is not generational wealth. And you see how hard it is when you actually put numbers to this to actually see generational wealth returns on stocks, even at today's prices. It is incredibly hard to see generational wealth being generated with this stock with everything that we know right now, to include Optimus and FSD and everything else. It is just very, very, very hard to hit. Now, is Tesla a great opportunity today? I agree. I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I'm putting money into it. But do I believe this is a generational wealth opportunity? I just don't. Obviously, I hope that I'm wrong. I win if I'm wrong, but I just don't see it at the stage whenever I put any sort of reasonable numbers to this when I look out. And more importantly, I feel bad for all those folks who thought they were buying generational wealth back when it was at $400. And it was just an overvalued, overhyped, over everything stock at that particular stage, at that particular moment. Now, you could have avoided all that completely if you were a part of my group where the sale ends today to become a member, where you can see a lot of things like our discussions about stocks when they're overvalued, undervalued, and stuff like that. So that way you understand valuation. And you would have instead, when Tesla was at 400, been buying a stock like Apple when it was down in the low 100s. Now, obviously, it hasn't returned thousands upon thousands of percent. I don't think you're going to get that sort of return from that, but it's nice to be up in that position versus having that position more than cut in half if you went the other way. So make sure you check out the pinned comment for that sale. Make sure you get your spot before that expires and the price goes back up. All right, so if I don't believe that's the generational wealth opportunity that's here today, then what is that opportunity, that generational wealth opportunity that is here today? What is that? Now, the answer isn't going to make a lot of you guys happy because everybody wants the lottery win, the one pick to win them all, and just makes me a fortune and I don't have to do anything and all other good stuff like that. That doesn't exist. It's not necessary, although your chances do go up infinitely when you implement this strategy right here. So number one, you invest consistently over decades. You do not dump $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 in now and then hope that you hit the big one and it goes. That is not how you build generational wealth. It is about consistently investing over time, over decades, and that's what a portfolio turns into. Nobody likes that answer, but it's absolutely the truth, and it goes for all investments. You don't just throw it all into one real estate investment and then you become a millionaire over the long run. Does it happen? Sure. Does it create generational wealth? Not really. I don't know any real estate investors that have generational wealth, and I know many that do have generational wealth that did it that way. They have consistently bought properties year in and year out for decades, regardless of whether the market was good, the market was bad, oh, wrong time, high interest rates, low interest rates, hasn't mattered. A great investor invests consistently, regardless of whether it's businesses, real estate, stocks, whatever the case is. How they've all built generational wealth is doing it over time and decades, not by just throwing money in one time and hoping and praying that it goes to the moon and that I pick the right one. Number two, add to your money loops to invest all the time. Increase the amount you invest and continue to increase that incrementally. You get another raise, put that into your investments. You get a side hustle, put that into your investments. The faster you accelerate this, the faster you accelerate your growth to generational wealth in the future. It not only increases your chances of hitting the big one, right? That one stock that is generational wealth. It also increases those returns because you'll have more money into those stocks. If you are consistently adding to your money loops to invest over the course of decades, you'll be shocked as to how much money you're able to invest every month, every paycheck, whatever the case is, 10 years from now, as opposed to what you could do today. Trust me, when I started my journey, what I can invest in, in a month today, I would have never dreamed of back when I first started investing and I bought that first $3,000 or $6,000 in Apple. Could have never dreamed that I could put in the amount of money I could right now and not even think twice about those investments. So you have to do that consistent. That didn't happen all at once. It wasn't like I was just here and then all of a sudden, oh, bang, Luke got lucky and it just all of a sudden you're over here. No, consistently every single year, I added to that over the course of decades to where now it is over here. That is how you double up and triple up and take advantage of compounding, which the next one we'll talk about is compounding. Look, this is not the place to have a complete compounding lesson, but if you don't understand compounding and how money compounds over time, you need to go look that up. Put it right there in the search bar, right there on YouTube. There are tons of great videos out there for you to watch to understand compounding and understanding how it's your biggest friend as an investor, how it just creates wealth by accident. That's the reason why dead people return better than traders do, because they get the advantage of compounding over time. So if you want to create generational wealth, you have to understand and use your two biggest assets as a retail investor, and that is time and compounding. That right there is your advantage as a retail investor. That is your greatest advantage. It's not picking one stock and having it go to the moon. It is exactly that. It is time and compounding. Wall Street doesn't have that advantage. Big firms don't have that advantage. Nobody has that advantage except for us as retail investors. That is our biggest advantage in the market. Next up, double down when others are scared. In 2022, I put more money than I've ever put into the stock market because everybody was scared and it was the easiest time to invest. Now, I had no idea where the bottom was. I didn't know if it was going to last 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. No idea, no clue. I didn't care. All I knew is valuations were getting stupid. Companies were still pumping out billions of dollars per company of profits, and they were trading at multiples that were just utterly ridiculous. And so I bought, and bought. Now, did I get thousands of percent returns on those stocks? No, I did not. And maybe I will one day, maybe not. Doesn't really matter at this stage. I know I'm very, very happy with, Forex and Meta. Some of you guys out there that bought Nvidia, you guys are very happy with your 7x or whatever the heck the number is for Nvidia at this stage. Palantir being a 3x from those levels. There's a lot of great stocks that are up significantly from those levels. And maybe they do turn into thousands of percent one day. All I know is that during those times, when you double down during those times, you put extra money in, you just go, this is going to suck. I'm going to be down. I'm going to look like an idiot. Everybody, at least for me in my comment section, was telling me I was stupid. What was I doing? The biggest recession ever is on the horizon and all this other stuff like that. I don't know. I just know those are the times to double down, and history has proven that true over and over and over again. So that is how you accelerate your race to generational wealth, is when those times come, you take advantage of them. So that way you get the kind of double up, double dip when the deals are great, and you still get the advantage of compounding over the long run, because even when the stock market runs hot, you're still going to invest. Now, does that mean you invest in hype? Of course not. That's where valuation comes into play and tells you, hey, lay off that stock. There's other stocks on a discount right now, right? There's a lot of stocks riding high. They're riding rich right now, but there's plenty of other stocks that are really crazy valuations. Maybe not as crazy as they were in 2022, even like a Tesla. Hey, it's finally getting back down to a reasonable valuation again. Definitely a much better deal than it was in 2021. So even though Nvidia and some other stocks are at all-time highs, and actually Nvidia is not that crazy overvalued, but sitting running really, really high, you have a lot of other stocks that are riding low and at great valuations. So there's always an opportunity to buy every single time. But when you get those anomaly periods to where the market just gets dumb, that right there is when you need to double down and take advantage. Next up, you invest in a mix of the best companies possible. Instead of trying to guess which one's going to be the one, just invest in 5 or 10 or 15 great companies that are going to provide you the type of return you think over the long run. I had no projections that Apple was going to be this incredible beast that it was. I didn't. I also owned Amazon, right? At the same exact time. It didn't return like Apple did. Sure, it's returned great, but it didn't return like Apple did. Heck, for all I knew, the big winner out of that time frame could have been Microsoft, right? Or actually, it was Nvidia when we really look in terms of percent return now. In regards to that, it came out, Nvidia went public right around the time of the tech bubble there. So that right there would have been an incredible time to get in on Nvidia and enjoy hundreds of thousands of percent return. So guess what? I didn't guess the best stock from that time frame at all. I just happened to guess one of the really good ones from that time frame there. Again, I had no idea. I just knew invest in the best companies possible. And for me, those were some of the best companies possible. Now, would I have missed it if it would have been Microsoft versus Apple? Yeah, I would have, because I didn't own Apple. I'm sorry, I didn't own Microsoft. I didn't own Nvidia. I didn't own some other stocks that maybe have returned more than that. Those were just kind of the few that I looked at specifically here for this video. But the point being, having that basket of great companies, okay, I didn't get the best one, but guess what? I'm really, really happy with my returns overall with the portfolio that I have. And even if you take Apple completely out of that equation, I get rid of those numbers, those $3,000 worth of shares that I bought that are now worth 7 figures, get rid of those. I would be very, very, very happy with my portfolio without that. Get rid of my best gaining stock. I'm still very, very happy with my portfolio, because that is what time and compounding does for you over the long run. That is how you build generational wealth. And the beauty of it is, I didn't need to guess anything in order to do that. I just had to invest consistently, create a plan, and execute that plan, understand valuation and other stuff like that, which is exactly what my group does, is teaches you exactly how to build generational wealth the right way, not the lottery way. So make sure you take advantage and check out the pinned comment down there before the price goes back up. March Madness sale ends today. Price is going back up. Check it out. You get 5 free courses. You get to be a part of free coaching sessions. You get direct access to me anytime you want. You get to be a part of the best 6, 7, and 8-figure Discord out there. There's all kinds of exclusive videos. We have a stock analyzer tool in there you can use. There's so much in the group, guys, and so much more coming. Make sure you check out the pinned comment and see if a membership's right for you. And click this video here if you want to see exactly what I'm buying in this market. And click here to see my exact plan for this market. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.